Hopefully you can hear me well. Um, I know I have a bunch of troll comments talking about audio.
Work today is broken. We're all working in too many disconnected
Hold
apps.
on a
And
minute.
it's
Sorry, now my ad is playing. Okay, let me just make sure that you can hear me. Let me just skip this ad. And talking about audio.
Work today is
Loud,
broken.
crazy.
We're all working.
Okay. So we're going to continue on with the Delphi transcripts. And why is it saying waiting? It shouldn't be saying waiting.
In too many disconnected apps.
Hold on a
And
minute.
it's
Sorry, now my ad is playing. Okay, let me make sure that we're live. I'm going to continue on with the... Okay, now we're on. Let me get over here and get up our graphic here. There we are. So this is going to be part 3 of the transcripts. Now let me grab them. Okay, so we had gone through the grandmother and the sister. And let's see, so next we're going to be doing Derek German, and this is Libby German's father, okay? So they ask him for his name, and he says, Derek German. Do you live around Delphi? Yes. Did you grow up in this area? Yes, my whole life. Did you graduate from Delphi High School? Yes. And in 2017, specifically February, where were you living? And he says, just outside of Delphi towards Rockfield. Were you living with family? He says, yes. Tell us who you were living with. He says, my mom, my stepdad, and my 2 daughters. And that would be Mike and Becky Patty. He says, yes. And Kelsey and Libby. Yes. Did you have a job outside the home at that time? He says, not full-time, just small jobs. Okay, would one of those jobs have been helping your mother with her business? He says, yes. Are you familiar with the business she had at the home office? He says, yes. Okay, what kind of work would you do for her? He says, I just go take pictures for her. And when you weren't doing that, what kind of interaction did you have with Libby or Kelsey? He said, I did a lot of running for Libby. She always forgot something. Okay, and where would you be running to or from? He says, the school. Were you familiar with her activities that were school related? He says, yeah, she was in a lot of activities. Okay, can you name some of those? And he answers, swimming, soccer, band, volleyball, softball. Okay, and so what kind of things would she have you be running for? He says, swimsuits or just food, she'd want some food before the game because she'd just stay after school. Okay, so how did you and Libby communicate? Would she call you on the phone? Would she text you? Did she Snapchat you? He says, no, I didn't have Snapchat, but she'd text. And so that was the preferred method between the 2 of you, texting? He answers, yes. Was that the same for you back to her? Would you text her or would you call? He answers, I would text. I would always try to call because I didn't like to text. But that didn't work so well? He answers, no. Jimmy, could you do me a favor, please? What? Could you just please put this on the charger? Thank you. So he says, no, she'd just say, text me back. All right, and did you know Libby's friends to some extent? He says, yeah, some of them. Did you know Abby Williams? Yeah, he answers. I ran to her house a lot. In your opinion, what?
What you watched?
Did you spend a lot of time? Did they spend a lot of time together back in 2017 and 2016? He answers, yeah. Are you familiar with Abby having spent the night at the house where you were living the night before she went missing? He says, yeah, I picked her up. Okay, and was there anything that you remember of note the day before? What were the kids doing if you were even around? He answers, the day before? Yeah. He answers, I had to pick Libby up from an overnight at another friend's house, and then we went straight to Abby's house to pick her up. Okay. Then they were at the house for the evening? He answers, yes. Yeah. And that morning, do you remember anything about the morning of Monday, February 13th? He answers, I got up and made them breakfast. What do you remember about that? He answers, banana pancakes. That's what I made them. They left me the mess to clean up. And were you aware of what they were doing after breakfast? He answers, they said something about painting a desk, but okay, you remember something about painting a desk. Where would the desk have been? He answers, in the garage. Is that the same garage where your mother has her office, or is there... He answers, yes. Like another garage? He answers, no, it's the same garage. Did they ask you to take them anywhere? He answers, no. And at some point, did you leave the house? He says, yeah, I had to go take some pictures for Mom. Do you have any idea of when you left? He answers, 20 minutes after 1. So tell us about what you were doing, what you were going to do to take pictures for your mother. He says, I had to take the original photos of comps for an appraisal, and there were 18 houses I had to take pictures of in Frankfurt. And so did you go straight to Frankfurt? Yes, he answers. Did you have a list of addresses? He says, yeah, I had a map. And they were all on the map. Oh, okay. And so you leave the house. Do you have any obligation to pick up Libby and Abby from anywhere? He says, no. And did that change shortly after? He says, yeah, about halfway to Frankfurt. She called me and asked if I would pick them up. Do you remember that being a phone call as opposed to a text? He says it was a phone call. And so what was she asking you to do? He answers, pick her and Abby up from the High Bridge on my way back from Frankfurt. At that point, what did you know about the High Bridge Trail? He says, I had dropped Kelsey and Libby off there one other time, but I'd never been back there. So you know where the drop-off was because you had taken Kelsey and Libby there. Yes, he answers. Okay, had that been long ago, prior to February 13th of 2017, or close in time? He answers, yeah, well, at least the summer before. I don't remember exactly when. And so what did you tell Libby about picking her up? He answers that I had 18 pictures to take, and it'd probably be a couple of hours, and she said, no problem, we'll just do some exploring. So, did you take pictures of 18 houses? He answers, yes. And then, did you go directly back to the Delphi area? He says, yeah, I went straight to the High Bridge. Based on where the drop-off or pickup point is for High Bridge, did you have to pass the area when you went to Frankfurt? He answers, no. Did you have to pass, let's see, when you came back, would you have been going past, are you familiar with Hoosier Harvest Store? He answers, yeah. Okay, when you come back to the pickup spot where you have driven, would you have driven past Hoosier Harvest Store? He says, no, I come from the opposite direction. Okay, now you said that you had dropped your daughters off there, but you had never been out there. Right, he answers. So there's a path. There's a walking path. Have you ever been on the walking path? He answers, no, not before that day. And you had not been on the abandoned railroad? No, he answers. Bridge, so tell us about what you did on your way back to let Libby know that you were going to be picking them up. He says, I tried calling her when I was a couple of minutes away to let her know to start heading back towards the entrance. And you were calling, not texting? He answers, correct. Did you get an answer? No, he answers. Okay, did you call again? He says, yeah, when I got to the entrance. When you got to the entrance? Were there other cars parked? He says, yes. And you said you called when you got there. No answer? He answers, right. So then what did you do? He answers, so I got out and I started walking back to the trail. And did you go to the left towards High Bridge or did you go to the right towards Freedom Bridge? He answers, no, I went forward I ran into somebody when I got to the trailhead there, where all the trails come together, and I asked him if he had seen 2 teenage girls, and he said no, so I took a different direction. Did you know the man that you ran into? He answers, no, I did not. Was he by himself? He answers, yes. Do you know who he is today? He answers, yeah, Dave McCain. How did you figure that out? He answers, somebody told me who he was later on. So you personally don't know Dave McCain? He answers, no. And so you asked him if he saw teenage girls, and he said no? Why did that cause you to go towards Freedom Bridge? He says, because if they weren't down there, I was going to go in a different direction to try and find them. So he was coming from the High Bridge side? He answers, yes. And what time would this have been? When did you start calling, if you know? He answers, at 3:11, I think was the first when I crossed Wilson's Bridge, and then 2 minutes later I got to High Bridge, so about 3... Got to the actual entrance? He answers, yeah. Okay, and you actually looked at your phone data to know that time, is that correct? He answers, yes. So you walked towards Freedom Bridge? He answers, at first I walked down towards the water. Oh, okay, you went down toward the water, so there's another trail? He says, yeah, a short one that just goes down to Deer Creek. Okay, did you see anybody down there? He says, no. And where did you go from there? He says, I came back up the hill, and I turned towards Freedom Bridge, and I walked down to Freedom Bridge. Are you still calling Libby's phone at this point? He said, yeah, a couple of times. What were you driving at this time? He says, a Subaru station wagon. What color was it? White, he answers. So you go down to Freedom Bridge. You come back, and then where? What do you do? He said, I come back, and I went back to the car. And then I started calling. Well, I think I called Mom first when I got to Freedom Bridge. And she hadn't heard anything from them. So I walked back towards the car. And I called again. Still no answer. So then I think I called Mom back again after that. When you say Mom, you're talking about Becky Patty, right? Yes, he answers. Okay, were you calling for the girls at any point, like yelling their name? He answers, yes. And where were you doing that? He says, just on the trail. So in all of the directions that you had gone, you were yelling for them? He answers, yes. And you got no response? He answers, correct. Did you at some point walk the High Bridge? He says, yeah, I got back out of the car. I sat there for about 15 minutes and still nothing. So I got out of the car and I walked, and then I walked back to Highbridge. Did you see people either on your way or at the Highbridge? He answers, well, while I was sitting in my car, that's when Dave McCain ended up coming back and leaving, and two kids pulled up, and they walked back to Highbridge. And that's who was back there when I got to Highbridge. Okay, so by the time you walk to Highbridge, Mr. McCain's gone. When you get to Highbridge, do you cross the bridge? He answers no. And at some point, do other family members arrive, and if so, when? He says, yeah. As soon as I got to the Highbridge, those kids were sitting on the first little deck on the bridge, and I asked them if they've seen anybody, and they said no. And that's when Kelsey and Cody come up behind me. They had gotten there, and okay, so we've looked at a video of the bridge. I want to use the same terminology. You say kids are on a deck on the Highbridge. Is that a platform that extends out off the bridge? He answers, yes. Okay, and when you're calling that a deck? He says, yeah, it's just about 4 by 6 foot place where you could step off to the side. Okay, and these kids that you saw out there, boys, girls, can you tell? He says a boy and a girl. So, who is it from your family that arrives behind you? He answers, Kelsey and Cody, my brother. At that time, do you recall that there was a barricade between the path and the abandoned railroad trestle? He answers, yeah, there is an I-beam that goes across. Okay, but could a person walk around it? He says, yeah, around it. You could step under it because it's about this high. And at that point, do you have a conversation with Kelsey and Cody? He answers, yeah, it was brief. They said they were going across the bridge. And then what did you do? He says, I walked back towards the car. What did you do back at the car? He said, my sister was parked there at the entrance. I got in her vehicle and tried to figure out what to do next. Okay, did you see your mother or Mike Patty at the trail when they came to help look? He says, yeah. Anyone else from your family that you recall? Not at that. Mom pulled up and parked across the road and was talking to AT&T, and then Mike pulled up and parked across the road on the other side a little, just shortly after that. So, was the area of the trailhead across from Mears getting kind of full at that point? He says, yeah. Okay. He says it was. There was your vehicle, the two kids that came. Did they come on different? He says they were one was on a moped, and one was on a razor. Okay, and so they're taking up parking space. You said your sister arrived. Was she in a car? He says yes. All right, so there's two cars and a couple of ATVs or scooters, and then any other cars on that side? Is the parking area taken up at that point? He says, yeah, that's why Mom parked across the road, kind of in the ditch. Okay, and then Mike did as well? He answers, yeah. After you meet with your sister at the car, do you go back out on the trail? He answers, yes. And did you at any point go to the police station? He answers, yeah. We were when I got back out and went down the trail, I don't even think I made it to the end, and I don't remember if that's when the cops and people started showing up, and then it was shortly after that they wanted us to go to the sheriff's department. And then, so you never made it all the way back out to the high bridge again? He answers no. When you went to the police station, do you think it was still light out? He answers yes. And did you look for them anywhere else? He says, yeah, my brother and I, we ended up going and driving around town looking. Was that before or after going to the police station? He says after. Okay, what kind of places were you looking for the girls? He says other parts of the trail that go through town, like down by the canal and over the bridge behind Pizza Hut. And did you at some point go out to the Monon High Bridge Trail? He says, yeah, my car was there, so Cody and I went back out there and I went looking again. So when you left to go to the police station, you were not driving your car. He says, I don't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure I left my car out there. Okay, and then your recollection is that Cody brought you back? He says, yeah, I rode with Cody into town, and then he brought me back to my car. And so what did you do from there with regard to searching for the girls? He says, I walked back down to High Bridge, and I searched the woods off to the left. And so what did you use to help you to search in the dark? He says, my little flashlight. What did... Love you gonna... He says, what... He says, the question is, where did that come from? He says, I just always have one in my vehicle. He says, then the question is, were you searching by yourself at that point? He says, yes. Did you know if Cody was searching as well? He says, I don't remember. I'd like to show you a map of the area. Derek, I'm making a reference to the State Exhibit 3. It has a sticker up here. It's a picture of the area. Do you recognize it as the area that shows the High Bridge? He answers yes. Okay, would you be able to come down here and point out the area where you were looking, please? He answers, yeah, I did not cross the bridge, so I stayed up in this area here. If you're just joining us, we are going through the testimony right now of Derek German. This is Libby German's dad. He's talking about when the girls went missing. Okay, so I want you to turn to your side so that the jury can see the picture, but also see where you're pointing at, okay? He says, okay. All right, would you agree this is the trail? He says, yes. Okay, so where did you leave the trail before the High Bridge? He says, just right at the High Bridge. Okay, and what direction did you go? He said, I went back this way. I just wove my way through the woods. Okay, this area through here, can you go down by the water? He said, it's pretty steep and it's high. Okay, and so did you go down by the water here? He answers no. All right, so with your finger, indicate to the jury what area you searched the day you went missing. The day they went missing, I'm sorry. He says, I searched all this around in this ravine. Okay, and point out for the jury in the court where the ravine is. Right here. Okay, so there's kind of a dark area on the picture. Would you agree? He says, yeah. And what's this area up here? He says, a cemetery. Okay, and so the ravine runs south from the cemetery? Yes, he says. Were you out there? Is that the area that you could have passed over and continued to look? He says, no, it was midnight, so it was pitch black, and it's a big ravine. Okay, was it easy to go through that area are the trails? He answers, no, it's woods. Okay, and so with your flashlight you set from your car, how much area can you see in front of you? He says about 10 feet maybe. Okay, and you're coming from the trail here right before the bridge. Yes, he says. Is this also a high bank? He answers, yeah, all the way around there. That is okay. All the way on the north side is a high bank. So you come around here. How do you go back? He says, I walked back to the trail just right around this edge. And that's when they said they were shutting down the search till morning. Okay, when you were searching this area, what time of night are we talking about? 10, 11, 12, he answers. And could you see flashlights of other people searching? Over here, he indicates. And you're pointing to an area south of the water, south of Deer Creek. Is that right? He answers yes. And would that be the area under the high bridge? Yes, he answers. Okay, but you never crossed this. No, he said. And so you've never been on the bridge to see the aerial look, right? No, he answers. Okay, but you could see the flashlights over there? Yeah, it was all lit up because the fire truck was out, he said. Okay, and this is on the 13th, the day they go missing. Yes, he says. Okay, did you see any flashlights to the east of the ravine? No, he answers. And you said go back to the trail. You go back to the trail, and do you have your head... You head back to your car at that point? He says, yeah, I went to the car at that point. Okay, on the next day, so Tuesday, February 14th, do you participate in the search? Yes, he says. And where did you go to begin that, and how did you participate? He said, we went to the city building, and they put us all in groups, and they gave us a search area. Okay, were you given a search area? This area, he says. The same one? Yeah, he says, and it ended at the ravine. Okay, did they give it to you on a map, or did they have a big picture? Yeah, he says. And say, this is yours? He said, there was a map we all got in our groups, and they gave one person, a map of where to go. Okay, how many? To start to look, he says. Sorry, go ahead. And there was probably 10 of us, he said. In your group? Yeah, he said. Okay, so on Tuesday the 14th, you go back out to the high bridge and you search the same area. Yes, he says. Okay, how do you get to the area the second day? He says, I drove and we parked down by the CPS building. Okay, was it farther back off the map? Yes, he answers. Okay, and how did you get to your area? We walked. Our search area was like from here, and then you pointed back up there to that area you're saying? He says, it's like the entrance. At the entrance, okay. So you recognize it on this map? Yeah, he answers. And so how do you get from the CPS building to the entrance? He answers, walked. On the trail or on the road? On the road, he answers. So when you enter the trail at that point, are you searching any of the fields, the open area? He says, no, we just searched the woods back. Okay, so the woods along the trail on the way? He answers, yes. When you get to the area that opens up to a bigger wooded area, are you spreading out? Yeah, he answers. And is anybody with you as you do your path? He says, my daughter, Glenna, was with me. She stayed with me the whole way. Okay. So could you indicate for us then what area you searched on the second day? He says, well, we got back to the woods. We stayed, here, like along the field. Okay, and so go ahead, and how far did you go? He says, we made it all the way back to the ravine. Okay, what happens when you get to the ravine? He says, well, I ran into my aunt, and we stood there and talked for about 5 minutes because I seen everybody else walking back to the entrance because when we got done, we were supposed to go back and get a new search area. Okay, what's your aunt's name that you ran into? He answers, Melissa. And what was her last name at the time? He says, Marchand. Okay, if I said Becky testified that it was her sister, Melissa Lowry, are we talking about the same person? He answers yes. Okay, all right, so you see Melissa. He answers yeah. Was Melissa in your group? He says no. Do you know where she was supposed to be searching? He says no, I think she was just off there searching. I don't know if she was in a group. Okay, so you come across here and you're with Glenna, your daughter. He answers yes. And you run into Melissa? Yes, he answers. Where are you when you run into Melissa? He says, like right here at the edge of the ravine. And so, do you know what area she had come from? He answers, she come up from behind us. Oh, behind you. He says, yeah. Okay, all right. And then, where do you go from there? He says, I said, we have to get back to the entrance. The rest of the group was already about, I could see them in the field going back and she said, well, I'm going to go down and check down here. Okay. And then he answers, but she went down in the ravine. So she continues this direction? Yes, he answers. Okay, this area up here by the field and cemetery, is it flat up here or do you know? He says, I don't really remember exactly where it starts to get real steep, but it was pretty close to the cemetery. Okay, you could see that there's a cemetery there? Yeah, he says. But it was still too steep, in your opinion, to cross. Yeah, he says. Okay, all right, you can have a seat. After you separate from Melissa, how do you learn that Libby and Abby have been found? He said, by the time I got back to the entrance, there was already a murmur. Something. I could tell something was up. So did someone specifically tell you? No. I just heard Mom screaming. She had heard something. When you got back to the entrance, did you see your Aunt Melissa there? He says she came running off the trail, screaming also. And do you then go somewhere where you actually receive official notification that they are deceased? He says, I think I saw the coroner and about 12 cop cars drive by, so I knew. So I found out where Kelsey was at. You called Kelsey? He answers, yeah. Did you go meet with her? He says, yeah. My dad took her back to his house, so I went there. Are we talking about Brad German? He says, yeah. I don't want to embarrass you, but you're a big man, and it seems like that would have been a difficult area to traverse. Would you agree? He says, yeah. So was it also hard when it was dark? He says, it was harder. Okay, and you're confident that you did not see on the first night any flashlights of people looking on the north side of the creek to the east of the ravine. He says, yeah, I don't remember seeing anyone over there. Okay, and then there's the cross-examination of Derek German is going to be the next thing now that we're going to go over. Hold on, I just want to make sure that we are on this. Hi, Denise. Hi, One Eye Blind Art. Hi, Jen Grill. Hi, Gail. Hello, Video Reel. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, let me go back. Okay, let me go back here. We're going to do the cross-examine now. of Derek German. That's Libby's father. All right. Okay, so, and now this is done by Mr. Baldwin from the defense team, okay? And you were searching, you said, from like 10 p.m. to in that area, 10 p.m. to midnight area? He answers, when we went back, yeah. Okay, but you don't know who was searching in what areas before that? He answers, no. Okay, I want to kind of help. I think it's a little difficult still to understand where everything is, so I wanted to ask if I'm on the Mears Trail, the Mears entrance. Do you know what I'm talking about? He answers, yes. And if you walk down the Mears entrance, kind of where you weren't here for that, and now you're at the main trail, you know where I'm talking about. He answers, yes. And if you turn right, where are you going? He answers, Freedom Bridge. And what does the Freedom Bridge look like? He says, it's a big blue bridge. Big blue bridge. Okay, so you turn off Mears entrance, you're going to go head down to Freedom Bridge, and there's another bridge beyond that, isn't there? Right behind the Mears, or the Freedom Bridge was like, is it the railroad bridge? You know what I'm talking about. No, he answers. Oh, okay, that's fine. So if you turn right, you go to Freedom Bridge. If you turn left, you're headed towards High Bridge, he answers. The High Bridge, right. And if you go straight, you go down the trail you went down. He says it goes down to Deer Creek. But that's not paved or anything. That's just kind of a dirt trail, and there's, right, he answers, branches everywhere. So I want to make sure I got this correct, when you ran into Dave McCain, who you later found out was McCain, coming from the High Bridge side, when you got to the Mears, from the Mears entrance to the place where you can go either right, left, or straight. Correct, he answers. And you think that was around 311? He says, no, 311's when I called them the first time to let them know I was almost there. Oh, okay, so what time would that have been then, maybe? Maybe 25 after, he answers. 25 after, okay. So you see Dave McCain at 25 after 3 coming from the High Bridge side, is that correct? He answers, correct. Great, okay, and he said to you, I think what he said, he didn't see anybody, is that right? He answers, he said he saw a couple, like, down there, taking pictures. Okay, he saw a couple down there. Yeah, he answers. Did he say he heard any screams? No, he answered. You said that there were lights when you were there between 10 and midnight. You said you saw that there were lots of lights, not flashlights, but other type of lights, right? He says, yeah, there was. They had some big lights set up on the other side. Okay, so if this, I believe, is the Freedom, is the heading over to Freedom Bridge, correct? This way? No, that's High Bridge, he answers. Thank you. I do that all the time. High Bridge. Thank you for correcting me. That this is, the Mears entrance is somewhere over here, right? He answers, yeah, it's basically the edge of the picture, right there. Yeah, you go on here, and then you go down here. That's where you encounter McCain. Is somewhere over there? He answers, right where all the trails come together. Okay, and then if you travel down here, you're going to get to the High Bridge, and then you said, where were the lights? They were on the other side. Does that mean this side here? He answers, yeah, they were actually on that little service road. On the service road. He answers, yeah, because they pulled the fire truck down there. Oh, I see. So they were On this service road down here, were they facing that way? Yeah, he answers. Okay, so was it bright enough that it would have illuminated this creek here? He says, yeah. Some. Okay, you saw that there were tons of people out there looking for the girls, is that correct? He answers, there were several people out, yes. I think what you told me before was tons of people. I don't remember what I said before then. All right, I don't want to bicker over the terminology. Lots of flashlights. Answer, yes. You don't know exactly where every flashlight was, but you saw lots of them. Correct, he answers. Were you searching for Libby between 10 and midnight? Were you ever looking in a flat area, looking around? He says, yeah, I mean, there were some flat areas. It's difficult. We get a lot of phone numbers that when we're checking out at different things, would you mind telling us what the last 4 digits of your phone number are so that we can compare it to another? So he gives them that. And that's what it was back then? He says, yes. When you were growing up, did you ever go out into those woods? No, he answers. So that was unfamiliar territory for you. Right, he says. No other questions, thank you. And then prosecution has no redirect. And he was asked to step down. And the next, let's see here. They're talking about Anna Williams. Is she going to go next? And Mr. Baldwin says we may need, related to an offer of proof for the other stuff, we may need, okay, third-party stuff related to Anna Williams. Let me see. They're going back and forth on this. Let's see what we get. Okay, now Anna Williams is called. And this is the direct exam from the prosecution. Good afternoon. Can you tell the court your full name? Anna Michelle Williams. And how do you spell Anna? A-N-N-A. How do you spell Williams? W-I-L-L-I-A-M-S. Okay. You are the mother of Abigail Williams, is that correct? Yes, I am. And in February of 2017, were you and Abby living in the Delphi area? Yes, we were. Were you in town or out in the country? We live out in the country. Were you living with other family members or just the two of you? Yes, we were at that time. And who did you live with? My mom, my stepdad, at least one of my sisters, and we had grandparents throughout different parts of the winter time. And did you grow up in this area? We did not. We grew up in northern Michigan. So what brought you and Abby to the Delphi area? My dad was a high school automotive teacher, and he transferred to Lafayette College. And after my divorce in 2006, my daughter and I moved down here when she was 2. So, for Abby, she was here most of her life. Most of her life, yes. Did she attend Delphi public schools? Yes. And in February of 2017, how old was she? 13. Now, you lived in the country, so how did she get to school? She took the school bus. Did she take it both ways? 95% of the time, yes, unless she had an after-school sport, and then what would happen? She would stay after school and occasionally walk across the road where I work. To where you work? Mm-hmm. And so, were you working at the time that would be across the street from the school? St. Elizabeth Healthcare. What was your job there? I worked in the kitchen. I served lunch and dinner. Did you have another job? I also bartend, waitress, part-time, at the dock in Pittsburgh, just down the road. Okay. Did you have a set schedule at the St. Elizabeth Healthcare? Sometimes, yes. Sometimes not. And at the job at the dock, would that be a particular time of day or days of the week? More evenings, afternoons and evenings. What about weekends? Generally every other weekend unless I covered a shift for somebody. Okay, so let's talk about Abby first. How would you describe her for someone who didn't know her? She was a very kind-hearted little girl, helpful, funny, smart, quiet, reserved around strangers, but also one of her favorite things at home and in the public was, how can I help? What can I do to help? What can I do to help? Okay, how did she do in school? Fair, to some extent. She loved to read. She had special things that she liked to do, and then the other stuff, not quite as important, but she was always a good student and a good friend. I mean, most of her teachers loved her. That's great. Did she have a large circle of friends, or did she keep her group small? I feel like she had a pretty small group of friends. She had the same kids, mostly in band and in volleyball. She would have done softball with Libby that spring, and most of the same kids are all in the same groups in that. Not all of them, but most of them. Okay, and so would you have an opportunity back then, to get to know her friends in band and volleyball? To some extent, yeah. I worked a lot of evenings and a lot of weekends, and I wasn't able to go to all of the games all of the times, but I knew the kids because they'd play volleyball 3 years in a row. So, same girls. Would Abby have friends spend the night, or would she go to other people's houses? She was at her friends' houses more than they stayed at our house. With my work schedule and her being with her grandparents, I didn't find it appropriate, or I didn't have people come and stay and have other people be responsible for her friends. Okay, if I couldn't be there. It would be more common for her to stay at a friend's house than for her to have people over. Yes. Simply because you weren't available to supervise. Correct. You indicated that she was a participant in band and volleyball, and you said she was going to be participating in softball. Did she have any other school-related activities in addition to sports? Nothing much with the school. She had a few different church activities, but those were the only sports that she stuck with. Okay, did Abby have a cell phone? She did not. And was that just a parental decision not to give her one? Correct. I decided that once she had joined softball and once she got into high school, which she finished up, she'd have finished up 8th grade. Once she got to high school, it would be necessary for us to maintain contact of when I would pick her up, drop her off, instead of her borrowing a phone and me not knowing, how much longer before the bus got there, etc. Okay, so up to this point, was it working pretty well when she didn't have one yet? It was fine. Now you say she was kind of shy, correct? Yes. And how was she as far as a comfort level in communicating with adults that she didn't know? I pushed for her to try to maintain contact once people spoke to her, even at 7, 8, 9. I'd say, well, so-and-so was talking. You need to look at them. It's important that you do that. You need to look at somebody when they're talking to you. I worked with her, but she wouldn't go out of her way to go up to a complete stranger most anywhere. When I worked at the nursing home, she might speak to an older resident, but that was about it. She didn't go out of her way to talk to folks she didn't know. What about her willingness to take risks? Was she brave? Was she cautious? Did lots of things scare her? She loved roller coasters, and I guess heights didn't bother her as much as they bother me. Okay, what about something that was truly scary, though? A roller coaster is an amusement park ride. What about, let's say, the High Bridge? Are you familiar with the High Bridge? I was familiar with the High Bridge. We had been out there a couple of times before, her and I, and with our family. I've never indicated any interest of going across the bridge, and I never knew she had inclined to do so at all, ever. In fact, if she had asked permission to go across the bridge, absolutely not. Now, I assume you had a phone. Now, you had a cell phone in 2017? Yes. And would you have had contact information for Becky Patty, Libby's grandmother, in order to communicate if the girls were together? Yes, but a lot of times they would have gotten a hold of me through Libby's phone. Okay, because Libby had your number? Yeah. Okay, and had you and Becky Patty communicated before because of the girls and things the girls did together? I'm sure we had, though at the end of the day, it turns I didn't have her number in my phone as it wasn't saved with a name, but I'm sure we had with her or with Kelsey. I mean, we communicated. Maybe it was even on speakerphone, so the girls had their phones and we were just present for it. And you mentioned Kelsey. You're talking about Kelsey German, correct? Yeah. That would be Libby's older sister? Yes. Were you familiar with Kelsey? Yeah. And that was it that made you familiar with her? Abby had been over there before, I remember that, on one other of the occasions, besides her traveling to Florida with them for spring break years prior, her saying, oh yeah, we rode with Kelsey to pick up a cake, and I was like, oh, okay, I mean, she was an older sister. She was like our house. There were always kids coming and going to some extent. Did Abby have any siblings at the time? No. Would you characterize you and Abby as close? I would think so, yeah. So on the 13th of February 2017, do you remember that it was a day when there was no school? Correct. And so had it been clear from testimony that she spent the night with Libby the night before, correct? Yes. And so the weekend just prior to that, had Abby been at home, or what was she doing during the weekend? My father came down from Michigan, and she had spent the night prior to all of this with him picking up her new softball gear. And so where did she spend her time with her grandfather when he came down? Well, they liked to go shopping, but I believe that particular weekend they had stayed at the Brandywine Hotel in Monticello. She liked the pool there. Okay, and how many nights did she get to do that, if you remember? It's not important. It was at least Saturday night for sure. And then after she spent Saturday night with her grandfather at the hotel in Monticello, did you get to see her on Sunday before she went to Libby's house? Yes, I picked her up. I think I had to get my tires worked on at Walmart, something. And then we came back into town and we met her we met Libby down at the park. You remember being at the park? Yeah. Oh, we were at the park. I had Abby, Libby was there, and I can't recall if I went and picked her up or if she met us there. I've never been able to recall that particular part. Okay, so you spent some time at the park? Yeah. Did Abby leave with Libby from the park? They left with me from the park. I brought them back to my house because the car ride to me taking Libby home, it was asked if she could spend the night, and I said, well, saw that coming. Sure. She says, well, I have to get stuff, so I took her back to the house to get an overnight bag and paints and crafts. I don't know. They took a bunch of little bags and boxes and stuff out of the house, and then I took them to Mike and Becky. Okay, so she's at Mike and Becky's. The next day is Monday. So what's your day look like? Like relative to the fact that she doesn't have any school. What's the plan? I am now working at Milner's Healthcare in Roseville, Indiana on that particular day. Oh, on that particular day. And that was the morning shift. And I think I talked to her on a break and asked her if she could stay the rest of the afternoon. And I said, well, that's not a problem, except I have to be at my bartending job just through the dinner shift, which should be around 8 o'clock. So either I pick you up before or I wait until after. And conversation went back and forth. And Becky said it was fine that she stay until after dinner. And I said, okay, well, I'll just come pick her up as soon as I'm done then. Okay, and just so the jury's aware, the Dock is a restaurant located where? Pittsburgh, Indiana, just down the road, right across the bridge. Okay, down that way. So from the courthouse to get to the Dock, how long would you say it takes? Less than 5 minutes, and the park where you're talking to us is in town? Riley Park, again, just down the road that way. And from town to your house? 3 miles. So everything's very close. Everything's very close. So on Monday, you know, now that she's going to stay until 8 o'clock, yes, or when you're done with your shift, approximately, yeah. Okay, at that point, do you know that she is at the High Bridge Trail? No. At what point do you learn that she had been on that trail? When I was at work that evening, around 5:30ish, I think, Becky called me, said the girls had gone out for a walk and they were supposed to get picked up and they had not returned and they had searched and can you meet me at the sheriff's department? When you got to speak with Becky, was this a conversation that you're talking about right now? She responded by nodding her head in the affirmative. Is that a yes? Yes. Okay, sorry. When you have an opportunity to talk to her, could you tell from your phone that she had previously tried to reach you multiple times? Yes. She had called my cell phone and I kept missing the call, whether it was dropping out from the location or I just didn't get to it in time, but she had called me like 3 times back to back within a very short period of time, like not within hours, like just literally 10, 15 minutes of calling. And you said that you were receiving calls, but you didn't have a name attached to her number, so yes. When you look at it, you didn't even realize it's Becky Patty. No. Okay. When you actually get to answer the call, is that the point at which you know that the number is now related to the previous calls? Yes. So did you go to the sheriff's department? Yes. And this is at 5:30ish? So did you just leave your shift and go at that point? Yeah, I had a couple of tables to close at. I kind of explained. I said, well, they just called me and I said, I don't know what these girls are up to, but it's probably not that big of a deal. But I'm going to go down there, and if I can come back, you know, transferred a couple of tables over to somebody else, and out the door I went. Okay, so you certainly didn't think that there was something horrific that had happened? No. Had you ever had an issue with where Abigail disappeared before and you couldn't find her and then it turned out to be nothing? They'd had one incident prior to that in the high school gym. Libby and Abby did? Mm-hmm. Okay, what can you tell us about it? They were there watching a swim meet, and neither of them were answering their phones, and I thought she'd gone home, or that she changed her mind, or that something had been canceled, but nobody was out front. Nobody was at the house, at my house. I couldn't get a hold of anybody. So I went back to the school, And they just walked out from the basement of the school. And I said, "You guys, I've been frantic." I said, "Please don't do that. Go where you're supposed to." And that was the only time that had not been but a year, but that's it. It was a year prior? If that. Okay. If that. That was not in their habit because they didn't go places by themselves. They were at the school for volleyball. They were at the school for meets and things like that. Was it. And so you talk about that like you were there to pick them up and they weren't outside. Correct. And so you were in communication with LG, Libby, German, on that particular incident because Abby didn't have a phone. Correct. And since you were the one picking them up, if Becky, Patty, or Kelsey didn't remember that particular incident, would it be because they weren't involved in the pickup? I wasn't actually picking them up. I was supposed to be dropping the money off to Abby while they stayed for an event, and then nobody was there, and so I thought something had happened, and of course she couldn't have called me. I went home. I came back to the school. I talked with a few other parents. About 10-15 minutes later, one of the parents said that they had seen one of the girls and said, "Your mother is looking for you. You need to go outside," and they both marched out. Okay. So you were there to drop off money? Yep. For them to stay at the event? Okay. Other than that, had you had any concern about Abby, like not showing up when you needed to pick her up? No. Okay. Any concern about her being safe in the care of the Patty family? Absolutely not. No other questions. Now the cross-examination. Hi, Anna. How would you describe Abby's voice? Was it soft when she normally talked, or was it average or louder? And any way you could describe it, I would say Abigail's voice depended upon who she was speaking with. When she was with her family and friends and her cousin, she spoke pretty candidly and pretty openly. But if you were to walk up and speak to her, she would probably go down to about this level and keep a pretty low tone. And did she have more of a high-pitched or a lower-pitched voice? She was high-pitched when she got excited. I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you. No redirect. Okay, the next one. Is Mr. McLeland. No, I'm so sorry. It's not Mr. McLeland. It's a direct examination of Deputy Mitchell Katron. Just 1 second, because I want to check out if we are all here. Okay. So, do you want to continue with these transcripts? I don't know. If we can continue with them now, or I can stop. We could do something else. I don't know. There were a lot of people that were interested in Delphi. And they've only been released. We kind of got sidetracked because Koberger. But they were only released like a few days before Koberger stuff. But I don't know that... I'll take a poll if we want to continue. Hello, Heart Made Wise. We'll see if we want to continue with them or not. I did put a poll up there. And we'll see what happens. Okay. Can we get a few more thumbs up on the video? That would be great if anybody could give us a thumbs up, share it out. I think there's, well, I always thought there was a lot of interest in Delphi. I know that several of you used to be into it. And like I said, the transcripts were only released a few days prior to the Koberger, and so when Koberger came out, we got kind of sidetracked with that. But these are not old. I didn't work today, Carolyn. Oh, okay. Denise. Okay, it's like 60% saying they'd like to continue. I know, like, some people like to kind of zone out when I'm reading, but if we don't keep the interaction up in the chat, it throws us off, and YouTube doesn't, like, keep us out there. Okay, so it's really helpful to stay interactive in the chat if we're going to do this. You know, because I could do this on my own and just upload it and not have it in a live chat, but if we're going to be doing a live, then I would need to have the interaction there. Otherwise, it's not going to get out there. Okay, so all right, so we'll try a little more of this. This is going to be an investigator next. Anybody that's really followed the case, and we didn't get to watch the trial, I think a lot of this is very interesting because it tells us a lot of things that we didn't know, especially with the family, but we'll see how interested, you know, it is, or how many people are interested in it. Okay, because I don't want to do things that people are not interested in, because that, if it's just me that's interested in something, that's just not, as Scooter would say, feasible. It's not even reviewing it, Jen Grill. This just came out, believe it or not. This was just released. We weren't, that's what I'm saying. This is some new documentation. It got sidelined with Koberger stuff, but it was released shortly before that was. So, yeah, but we'll try to go on now. Okay, thanks, guys. Please try to stay a little bit interactive in the chat, because if you don't, then it looks like we don't get pushed out. Okay, so this is Deputy Mitchell Katron. Okay, and so this is the direct examination. Will you state your name, please? Mitchell Katron. How are you employed? He says, with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. And Deputy Katron, I'm going to ask you to speak up as best as you can so that everyone can hear you. We're having a little bit of an issue with the microphone. Sometimes it's amplifying and sometimes it's not. And so just use your best outside voice for me. Does that work? That'll work, he answers. All right, you're employed with the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Is that correct? That is correct. And how long have you been employed there? 12 years. And did you have to go through special training or schooling to be a law enforcement officer? I did. Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. And any other special training or education to be a law enforcement officer? We also go through a field training program, the hiring process. And have you spent your entire career as a law enforcement officer with Carroll County? No. I was a reserve deputy in Clinton County for 2 years prior to that. And so, have you been with Carroll County for 10 years? 12 years. Hold on a moment. 12 years, okay. And have you been in and around Carroll County the entire 12 years? Yes. And would you say you're familiar with the area? Yes. I'm showing you what's been stipulated to, and it's been marked as States Exhibit 5, and it's a digital map that's on the TV screen right here. Can you see that? I can. And can you describe the area that the map displays? Yes, that's County Road 300 North at the top end there. That's the Hoosier Heartland, the multi-lane going at an angle on the left-hand side of the screen. Deputy Katron, do you mind coming down and, as you identify landmarks or markers on the map, would you be willing to use this pointer to point them out for me, please? Sure. Deputy Katron, can you point out the Hoosier Heartland? That's the Hoosier Heartland right here, this 2-lane highway. Let's get oriented in direction north, south, east, west. It's at the top of the screen north. This is north to the top of the screen. Okay, and then east and west is to the left and the side of the screen, correct? Yep. And where is the city of Delphi? It's located over this way. I can see it on the map. I can't see it on this map. That's fine. So on the left-hand side of the screen? Correct. Just off of the screen? Correct. And you pointed out the Hoosier Heartland. Is that correct? Yes. Why is this area commonly referred to as the Freedom Bridge? The Freedom Bridge would be this bridge crossing right there. And it crosses the Hoosier Heartland? That's correct. All right, thank you, Deputy. Freedom Bridge again. Can you point that out? Yep. Freedom Bridge crosses here. And we've referred to a place in prior testimony, the old CPS building. Can you point that out? Yes, it would have been in this area. Well, it's still there in this map, I believe right here. Okay, well, we've talked about an area called the Mears entrance. Can you find that on the map? That would be this entrance right here. And where does that entrance lead? So this goes to the trails. And the Freedom Bridge, is that connected to the trails? It is. Can you tell me, show me on the map where it is connected to the trails? The Freedom Bridge crosses here and comes through here, and this whole trail comes along here to the Mears entrance. And if you enter the Mears entrance and you go to the east, where does the trail lead to? It goes to the Monon High Bridge. And the Monon High Bridge is where? Right here. And what is the body of water that crosses underneath the Monon High Bridge? That would be the Deer Creek. And can you run your finger along that Deer Creek? Deer Creek here. I know some of these questions are silly, but I want to make sure the jury has a good understanding of what we're talking about. Sure. We've also talked about an area called the Hoosier Harvest Store business. Are you familiar with that? I am. Can you point that out on the map? It would be this business here. And what does that business, what are they in the business of? So, the Hoosier Harvest Store, my understanding is that they have these big blue silos that store silage for cattle, but they also have storage sheds along here as well. And those long buildings, are those the storage sheds? They are. Okay, I want to take you back to February. I'm going to ask you to stay at the map because I'm going to have you point out some things. I want you to stay right there. On that day, February 13th, 2017, what shift were you working? Day shift, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And do you recall getting a call from dispatch around 5:15 p.m. on that day? I do. Can you tell me about that? Dispatch advised me that there was a gentleman on the phone wanting to get assistance from us because a couple of kids were missing or not showing up where they should be. And do you know who the gentleman on the phone was? At that time, no. Did you answer the phone? I did. Did you make contact with the person on the other end? Yes. And who was it? It ended up being Mr. Patty. And what information did you get from Mr. Patty? Simply that he was supposed to pick up these two kids at a location around the Freedom Bridge there. They weren't there. He was getting concerned because they had looked around a little bit and they were at a point where they want to reach out for more help to help look. Did he indicate where the girls were supposed to be picked up at? I don't recall. Okay, did you find out the names of the girls at that point? Yes. And who were they? They were identified as Abby Williams and Libby German at the time. Okay, and after you got that information, what did you do next? I went out. First, I either had dispatch or myself announce it of what I was doing when the call was. I then drove out to this lane. This is, I believe, 625 West, if I recall. I could be a little off on that, which goes to a private drive, which is right here, which goes underneath this. I'm going to slow you down a little bit. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to make the picture a little bit bigger so we can see what you're talking about. So point that out again. Point out 625 on the map. So down here is County Road 625 West. And then right here at this angle, it turns into a private drive. And then this here is all privately owned and a private driveway that loops all through the woods. And then it goes under the Monon High Bridge right here. And I don't want to be elementary, but I want to make sure everybody understands. The white line is the private drive. Yes, it is. Are there any... I'm sorry, Judge. It's a little awkward. Are there any houses on the private drive? Not until the very... There's a house here, but there are no other houses until this one. Here. And who lives there? That would be Brad Weber, if I recall correctly. Judge, this is Mr. McLeland, can I check? Can the jury still see everything okay? I just want to make sure before we go too far into this. Judge says, thank you. And so you reported to 625. I think your testimony was that you were proceeded on to the private drive. Is that correct? That's correct. And you testified that the private drive winds back to the house where is the Monenhigh Bridge? The Monenhigh Bridge where it crosses the private drive is right here. That was a bad question. Where does the Monenhigh Bridge start? It starts in this area right here. And does it start at a place that is at the end of the trail, what we commonly refer to as the end of the trail? That's correct. And it proceeds across the Deer Creek. Is that correct? Correct. And it proceeds all the way past the private drive? That is correct. If you know, this may be an unfair question, but if you know which way does the water flow, it should be flowing this way. And so to the northeast would be upstream. Is that fair? Yes. And to the southeast, that would be downstream? Correct. And so you went to the private drive. The private drive, when it gets to the Monenhigh Bridge, tell me about that area there. So this area here, of course, you can't see it. The bridge is very high in the air. The driveway is underneath of it. Although we're looking on top, the bridge is much taller. The driveway goes underneath of it. So the private drive goes under the Monenhigh Bridge? That is correct. Now, even though the Monenhigh Bridge crosses the Deer Creek, it is much longer than the span of the creek. Is that fair? That is. So again, point out where the Monenhigh Bridge starts. In this area here. And where does it end? All the way here. Okay, and so when you get to the private drive, what do? I get out of my police vehicle there and show me where. Right here. Okay. And so I would say on the northeast side of the Monenhigh Bridge? Right, underneath of it, yeah. Right underneath it? Okay, is there anybody with you? No. Okay, you're by yourself? Correct. And you're doing this. As you're doing this, are you reporting to dispatch what you're doing? I believe so, yes. Okay, so you get to that area. What do you do next? I get out of my police vehicle. I look around this general area just right here. How far away from your vehicle would you estimate that you looked? My vehicle was always in my sight. It was not very far. What is the terrain like there? It's woodsy, very wood-like. And you said the Monenhigh Bridge is up above you at this point? Yes. Okay. Did you yell? No. Did you yell out Abby Williams, Libby German, anything like that? Did you turn on your sirens? No. Did you turn on your lights? No. How long were you outside your vehicle looking? I don't recall. 30 minutes? 3 hours? 5 to 7 minutes. 5 to 7 minutes and you got back in your cruiser. What did you do next? I proceeded up this driveway. If I can move this. You're getting the hang of it. I like it. Go ahead. Yep. Thought I'd save you some steps. So I got back in my police vehicle here. I continued up this private driveway and I went to this house. And who lives there again? That was Brad Weber. At the time, did you know Brad Weber lived there? No, I did not. You found that out later? Correct. When you got to the residence, what did you do? Yeah, so I walked up to his front door. I knocked on it. I made contact with him. I told him while I was out there I was looking for 2 kids, and I asked if I could look about his property, around his property. Did he allow you to do that? Yes, he did. When your interaction with him, what was his demeanor? Normal, like anyone would be knocking on their door. So, was he covered in sweat? No. Was he covered in blood? No. Did he look disheveled in any way? No. Okay. He allowed you to look around his property. Yes. If you continue to slide the picture over and tell me where you looked when you got to his property. So, essentially, I asked him. He gave me permission. I walked down this way, out around this area, and then that was about as far as I went. Are there outbuildings on his property? This, here. And so, that big building we see there on the picture, is that a barn? I assume so. Okay. I'm just recalling off the map. My memory doesn't serve, so that's fine. Did you walk around the barn? Yeah, in this area. I don't remember if I actually looped around it or not. Did you go inside the barn? No. Okay. Did you see anything that stuck out to you? I did not. Did you see the girls? I did not. After you searched that area, what did you do next? After I searched the area, I got back in my police vehicle. I continued on down the driveway. Other night shift units were coming, and that's, I believe I went home. And so you went back down to the private drive, down to 625, is that correct? That is correct. While you were driving out of the private drive, were you looking around? Yeah. Were you looking for the girls? Yeah. Did you see anything? No. Now, do you remember what the weather was like this day? No. At that point in time, it was getting pretty dark, I believe. So this is 5:30, 6 o'clock? Yeah. When did your shift end? 6 p.m. By the time you got done looking at Brad Weber's, do you remember it's after 6 o'clock? Yeah, I believe I may have stayed over again. Just memory doesn't serve me. I definitely stayed after at least a half an hour by the time I got home. So, and when you left, was it dark? Yes. Okay. And on your way out of that private drive, did you stop and talk to Mr. Weber again? Not that I recall. Did you see anything as you exited the private driveway? No. And when you exited, did you come back on 625 heading south? That is correct. And did you go back to town? Negative. I think I went home. Okay. So, I did not go back towards Delphi. Okay, on your way down 625, did you see anything? No. Did you see the girls? No. Okay. At the time you left work, it was 6 o'clock. It was after 6 o'clock? Correct. And you were getting updates, and you searched and talked to Mr. Weber when you were getting updates from dispatch on the location of the girls or possible location for the girls. Not that I recall. Were you able to gather any information at the time? I was not. Judge, I don't have any other questions. Deputy, you can have a seat back up on the stand. Thank you. And then they, hold on a minute, they do have a cross by Ms. Auger. Deputy Katron? Yes, ma'am. Okay, well, you went through ILEA. You were taught how to investigate crimes, right? Yes. And you were taught to pay close attention to details? Yes. Survey areas for evidence? Sure. And that continued in your field training? Yes. And so the original call came at 5:17 p.m., correct? That's what the report says, yes. Okay. Is there a reason to believe the report's wrong? No. Okay, and you're pretty quickly then left the dispatch center where you were. Yes. And I believe the dispatch center is located at the sheriff's department? It is. Okay, how far? I'm directionally challenged. That's okay. How far west of the Hoosier Heartland is the sheriff's department? Oh, half a mile at best. Okay. Can you recall what time you left the sheriff's department to go on the High Bridge area? Simply guessing, I would say maybe 5 to 7 minutes after I hung up the phone. Okay, so we're looking at 5:22 to 5:25. That's, yep, but best recollection. Pardon? Best recollection, yes, ma'am. And how long did it take you to get out to 625? I'd say 3 minutes. And why did you decide to go to the south end of the High Bridge? So I had previously been to the Weber property for a criminal mischief report to a chicken coop, and I know that area, and I know that driveway went underneath the High Bridge, so I thought that'd be a good place to check. Now, when it's daylight, when you first arrived out on where 625 meets the High Bridge, yes, it was becoming dark, but there was still daylight out to see. And on February 13th, you said it was wooded, right? Yes. But there weren't many leaves on the trees, were there? Not that I recall. Okay, so you had decent visibility in that area. Yes, yes. Okay, now we get to the High Bridge at 5:47. Is that correct? That sounds right, yes. And we're looking at it in that form that you know as the CAD report. Yes. Okay, and you spend 5 to 7 minutes searching all over, is that right? Around the bridge that crosses the driveway, yes. Okay, you didn't go down the hill to the bottom of the bridge, did you? I did not. Okay, and you're listening, correct? Okay, and when did you see everybody? Oh, and who did you see? Anybody? Did not. You didn't hear anybody? I did not. Okay, and then you went down the access road. Would you mind coming down? No, absolutely. So you started here? Yeah, I came in this driveway here and I drove to here was my first step. All right, and how far is it from your first stop here where the access road meets the High Bridge to the Weber property there? That far, which I mean 1/8 of a mile around here, okay? All right, okay, not very far? Not very far. All right, and you get back in your car and you drive down to the Weber property, is that correct? That is correct. All right, and when you're driving down that access road, you continue to look? Yes. Right, and when you're on this access road, can you see over Deer Creek, across Deer Creek here? You can see over that direction, but I can't see water to my recollection. Is that because the access road is higher and by the time you kind of angle down to see, you really can't see water here? That's because of the terrain in my memory. That's how it was. All right, so right on the north side of the access road, that's a pretty far drop down to Deer Creek, right? To my best recollection, yes. Okay, and so you think that you can see over here? You can see the wooded area, yes. All right, and again, no leaves on the trees. Correct. Decent visibility. Yes. Right. And you don't have anything? No. All right. And Deputy, keep your voice up, please. Maybe I'll stand over here and you can yell that way. So, where did you park at the Weber residence? Parked in his driveway, right in this area, somewhere. And when you parked, did you look at all over here? As I was driving up, I was looking out sideways. Okay, and when you first got out of the car, did you hear anything? I did not. Did you stop to listen? Always listening. All right, that's part of your training, right? Yes, ma'am. All right. And you didn't see anybody, is that correct? Correct. You didn't hear anything? No. All right, and so you walked up to Mr. Weber's door? Yes. And how long did you speak to Mr. Weber? A few seconds at least, a minute tops. It wasn't a long exchange. It was not. Okay, and he gave you permission then to look around this property? Yes. All right, and to the best of your recollection, can you show us with your finger where you went? Yes, so my car was parked here. I went next to my car and I walked down this direction, looked in this area. Okay. Looking out this way. All right. And you did not go into this outbuilding here, correct? I did not. And it looks like this is another outbuilding. Yes. You did not go into that outbuilding. I did not. And how long were you there on the Weber property? I don't recall. Okay, now, as I believe, 6 or 6:15, you advised, check along the trails on private property. Is that correct? If that's what the CAD sheet says, then yes, ma'am. Okay, and where were you then? What does that mean? If I announced that I was checking on the trails on the private property, that would have been when I was on this lane somewhere. Whether I was just driving down it or had gotten out of my car within that time frame. I was either driving down the trails or getting out of my car at that point. Okay, 6:18? If that's what the CAD sheet says, yes. Okay, would it refresh your recollection if I showed you the CAD sheet? Absolutely. Deputy Katron, I'll show you Defendant's Exhibit C, which is the CAD report. Okay. Does that refresh your recollection? Yes, it does. Okay, I'm going to take it back. Okay. Are you done? Yes, okay. All right. And so 6:18. You were on the trails east of the High Bridge? Yes, the trail. Checking the trails means I was on the private drive checking. This is what I was calling the trails. Okay. So the High Bridge is what I was calling the trails, and what I was checking. I was either driving my vehicle on the private drive or out of my car underneath the bridge at that time. All right. Now at 5:47, you were at the Monon High Bridge, so you're there again at 6:18. Had you already been to the Weber property? No. I would have stopped there first and then gone to the Weber property. Okay. And you stopped here 5:47? Yes. And then you went to the Weber property? Yes. And then you went back here at 6:18? I don't know. That works out with the time frame for radio traffic, but I drove down the private driveway. I had stopped at the High Bridge and went up to his house. Okay. As far as the exact minute and times, I don't know. All right. Now, how they're entered into the CAD report, is that you're calling in and telling them what you've done? I would assume so, yes. All right, and you think you left around 6:30? Yes, it was between 6 and 6:30. Okay, around that time now. after you were, how long did you spend searching at the Weber property? And when I say Weber property, that is all Weber property. But yes, I'm talking about either the field and the buildings there. Is that fair? Yes, again, about how long it takes for me to walk out of my car, walk down here. It wasn't an extensive amount of time, so was in the, 5 to 10 minute range. And then you left, going back out the access road. That is correct. Okay, and you're still observing? Yes. And your windows down? I don't recall. All right, you didn't see anybody. Correct. All right, and did you stop again here on your way out? Not that I recall. All right, you can sit back down. Thank you. Now, can you come back down? Absolutely. I'm sorry. Not a problem. Is there, when you come off the top of that high bridge, were you ever... I've never been on top of High Bridge. Okay, so do you know where it goes? Is there a trail that it continues on? So my understanding is that it goes out here, it just diminishes, then it's just no further trail that's designated as the trails on that bridge. Okay, all right, well, then I didn't even need to bring you down here. Okay, I'm sorry. That's all right. I won't do it again. Now, you're aware that during the evening after you left and went home that there was a very extensive search. Is that right? So when I went home, I know that other units were looking. I was not made aware of the magnitude of people who were coming out. And was it when you left at about 6:30? Was it dark? Yes. Did you see any flashlights? I did not. You also said that on February 13th you were pulled off of road duty. Yes, that's correct. And you worked the tip line? Yes. Okay. And that consisted of receiving tips and going out and investigating them? I apologize. So I did not do any phone calls on the tip line. I was simply tips that we had received previously, and I went and followed up on them. Okay. Do you recall how many tips you followed up on? I do not. It was several. How long was that your job to follow up on those tips? It wasn't a full year. I would say it was several months out of a year. I don't recall how many months it was. And did you ever investigate any tips related to Richard Allen? I did not. Did you ever hear of any? No. No, I think we're going to do the cross. Hold on a minute. Oh. Hi, Justina. How's it going? I want to just see if I'm just going to take a little detour to see if anything happened on that Tennessee manhunt, okay? Just see. Because I've been I haven't checked the news at all. There's another arrest, let me see. Another arrest linked to Austin Drummond. A third arrest has been made. This one is Dia Ross Sanders, 23, was arrested August 4th on a charge of accessory after the fact to first-degree murder. The statement alleges that Sanders assisted the still at-large Austin Drummond after the murders. Okay, so here we are in Jackson with the SWAT team. That is August 4th. Sanders' arrest follows the other two that were Tanaka Brown and Giovante Thomas. So let's see. A massive law enforcement presence was deployed in Jackson, Tennessee on August 4th as authorities followed up on a lead about the whereabouts of Drummond. According to the Memphis Commercial Appeal, part of news network. A little before noon local time, dozens of state and local law enforcement agencies gathered on the lawn of the West Jackson Baptist Church, deploying drones and canines in search of Drummond. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said at 12:15 Central Time that Drummond has not been arrested, but the police presence was related to the search. The Commercial Appeal reported that on August 1st, an affidavit filed by U.S. Marshals Service in federal court showed Deputy Marshal Darrell Weldon writing that it is believed the Austin Drummond possibly fled the state of Tennessee. Drummond, 28, is currently on the state's most wanted list of charges of first-degree murder, felon in possession of a firearm, aggravated kidnapping, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. This individual has shown a propensity for violence, and he needs to be taken off the streets, says Tyrese Miller, U.S. Marshal for the Western District of Tennessee. So this other arrest here, let me see here, Dira Sanders. Let's see what we could find out about her, 23 years old. Dira Sanders. All of these people helping, they must be the ones to hide the cars, I guess. Wonder how law enforcement found them to be included in all this. I know they won't tell until they catch him. Okay. So 3 arrests made and still no Drummond. Interesting. Crazy. Crazy, I'll tell you. Now, Missouri husband is charged with his estranged wife's murder after detectives unravel his story. Oh boy, wonder what he's doing. She looks very familiar to me. So, a 25-year-old Missouri man, 25, wow, was arrested last week for the murders of his estranged wife and their unborn son. Sidney Frederick Wilson V was charged on Thursday with first-degree murder in the deaths of Reagan Lynn Wilson, 21, and their son, Silas. He has also been charged with armed criminal action. Lebanon police say that they were called to Reagan Wilson's home at 11:30 p.m. on June 5th, and they found her with multiple gunshot wounds. The baby survived the initial shooting but died 8 days later. Wilson told police he arrived at his house at about 8:30 p.m. on June 5th, and when there, he said he got a call about the shooting, and he left to drive to the hospital shortly after 12:30 a.m. He also told investigators that he had gotten a Facebook message from Reagan several hours earlier telling him that she didn't want him or his family there. He admitted that the message upset him, saying that was the reason he waited a while to respond back. As detectives investigated, they discovered surveillance footage from Reagan Wilson's home that showed a man resembling her estranged husband creeping around her house just before 11:30 p.m. Surveillance cameras at the home appeared to corroborate the timeline of the story. However, it showed him arriving when he said he did and going inside, only emerging to take his dogs out. But once he allowed a search of his phone, the story began to unravel. Google Maps data from his phone showed he had left his home at about 10:30 p.m. on June 5th, and he was traveling towards Lebanon, where Reagan Wilson lived, on Interstate 44, but then the data suddenly stops, as if the location data was manually shut off, and comes back near Mercy Lebanon Hospital at approximately 1:01 hours on June 6, 2025. Further investigation of Wilson's cell phone data showed that his phone near his estranged wife's home around the time of the shooting and traveling down Interstate 44 in Lebanon. The phone pinged off cell towers near the home for about 40 minutes, and then leaves the area and heads back towards Wilson's home. Then the phone leaves his area again and heads towards the hospital. His home again, and then leads to the hospital, her home. Investigators also found fingerprints on the outside of Wilson's bedroom window. Detectives also noted that Wilson never once asked about the status of the investigation and where we were locating a suspect in the investigation. He only asked about when he could get his vehicle back. Wow. Man slashes a woman's throat on an Oklahoma bus. Wow. Hold on, let me get this. 42-year-old man was arrested Sunday afternoon after he sat down behind a stranger on a Tulsa City bus and he sliced her throat before fleeing the scene. Tulsa police quickly located Robert J. Rhodes and took him into custody, finding him with blood on his clothing and a bloody knife in his pocket. Police said the victim was rushed to a hospital where she underwent surgery. Doctors say they are hopeful for their recovery and that she has been stabilized. Witnesses, including the bus driver, informed us that Rhodes and the 43-year-old female victim boarded the bus at the Walmart stop on the 81st and Lewis. Rhodes sat directly behind her, and they had no prior interactions or verbal exchanges. And as the bus arrived at the main station, Rhodes reached around and allegedly assaulted the victim by slicing her throat before leaving the scene. Detectives have gathered witness statements and asked for video footage from the bus. Rhodes has been charged with assault with a deadly weapon and false impersonation and is being held on a fugitive warrant from Missouri. Wow. Police are searching for tips on a missing Texas gamer. Jessica Hutto, 19 years old. She is missing in Texas. It says that authorities are searching for 19-year-old Jessica Hutto, who went missing from San Antonio. She's believed to be in Houston, possibly linked to an online game. Jessica's parents reported her missing after she left without essential items, and they're concerned about her safety due to her anxiety and depression diagnosis. The family is urging anyone with information to contact San Antonio and Houston police departments, emphasizing their desire for her safe return. Authorities are actively searching for her. Her family believes the disappearance is linked to that online game. It's been terrifying, unbearable, said her mother, Michelle Hutto. I don't know. I don't get much sleep. I don't eat much, and all I can think about is her and where she is and if she needs me. Her father, Chris Hutto, expressed concern over her sudden departure. We're worried because she didn't take anything. She left her bank card, her phone, her computer, like this. Not normal. Jessica's parents revealed that she was diagnosed with anxiety and depression and had unplugged all the cameras at home before leaving. Michelle said the fact that all her stuff is here, her jewelry, her bank card, her devices, they feel that this was circumstance enough to say that she's a missing person and that they're going to assign it to a detective and also connect the Houston Police Department to be able to join. Jessica's parents managed to access her phone, discovering the last contact was with someone in Houston who she met through online gaming. Chris Hutto expressed concern about potential trafficking, saying possibly yes, but it's through a gaming system. Please let us know that she's okay. If she needs help, please help her and just contact us because that's all we want to know is that our daughter is safe, said Michelle Hutto. Chris Hutto added, we love her and miss her so much and that nobody's mad at her for leaving or nothing like that. We just want her to be safe. Okay, so yeah, hopefully she's found safe. All right, let me see now. Okay, I have a really super duper duper early day again tomorrow, and I had a really early day and a lot of stuff going on, and I'm tired. My allergies seem like they're acting up, so I'm going to do the word cookie, and I'm going to go to bed. I just have to. Just have to. I'm so tired. Okay, yes, hit the likes, people. If you're here, hit the likes. And if you'd like to help the channel, join as a member and you'll be shown in green, and it helps the channel immensely, and we have probably the lowest start to our memberships ever. Let me see here. Oh, tide. The tide is high. Hold on a minute. Well, I can heart, but people have to stay in it. That's the problem. Otherwise, it will close. Let's see here. Huh. Okay, let's see. I need Murder of Crows here. Where's all our players? Where's Heart? Heart, what's going on? Where's all our players, our word players? Victoria, I haven't seen Victoria in days. I haven't seen High 61. Where are you, High? Victoria. Cancela, are you yelling at your TV? Heart Made Wise, where are you? Murder of Crows, what's going on? Who else are players? Where's all our players? Where's all our players? Where's all our players? Nobody's cheating, video reel. Nobody's cheating. Who's cheating? Oh, Debbie D. Prairie. I thought I did. Let me see. No, wait a minute. What am I doing? Where are you going? Okay, heart. I don't. What do you have there, Debbie? Pear? Don't I? I do have that. Hi, Tina. Okay, I'm trying to look at something. You're on drugs? Oh, you had surgery? Oh, I hope you're okay. I already put that down there. Heart, it's right here. Oh, area. Hold on. Oh, right. Area. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Let's see. Polo pony, Pelopony, a Pelopony. Remember that? Pelopony, Pelopony. Okay, let me see. Ply, okay. WD ply, yeah. What do you have? Marbles. Marbles? What? I don't even know. There's no M here. Oh, I see. Okay, never mind. All right, we'll have to leave this one for tomorrow. I'm falling asleep. I am very, very tired. I appreciate everybody being here. Very nice. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll try to see what I can do. I will be around, God willing. I want to get some sleep. I'm really tired, exhausted. Love you guys. God bless. Prayers. Be good. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. God willing.